What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on these analysis. We're going to be looking at MSTR and Bitcoin today. So we still have our long-term trend line that we're playing outside of at the moment. We'll see if we could get back inside of it or if we continue to go sideways and then make a decision from there. But as you can see previously, this is on a monthly chart. We respected this line consistently, and now we are no longer respecting that. So it's definitely something to take note of, that we have fallen out of this downward sloping trend line, and it's going on the fourth week being outside of it. So we had our first close. We did say, of course, because we talk about this all the time, if you break a structure, you're more than likely going to retest to see if you can actually break back inside of it. We did that. It looks like we failed the first week, then we tried again on the second week of being broken out of it, and then we fell underneath this structure right here, the third strongest structure out of these three here. We fell all the way down to 325, found a strong bounce off of this key support right here, sitting at 324 to around 310. Got a strong bounce, closed. It was looking pretty bullish as we closed pretty much right underneath this key structure, hoping that we could potentially retest and see if we could actually break this downward sloping trend line this time, the white one. And we didn't even touch it. We just gapped all the way down this week, and it's kind of just been a sideways week. Right now it's playing out kind of like we're talking about, where we would more than likely chop before making some kind of decision. So we'll see if we end up chopping, breaking out, and retesting this structure. Hopefully able to surpass this key structure at 368 to around 359, get a retest off of that and continue higher. Of course, the other scenario is still chopping sideways and falling underneath this structure. If we do that and retest and hold that, and then surpass the low of this more recent move, this is hypothetical, then that would open up the idea of falling down to that 250 region. Hopefully not, but that's kind of the structure that I'd be looking at if we were to break underneath here, hold, retest, kind of just exactly how we saw over here. So if we see a move similar to this right here, the break, hold, retest, and then we fall underneath this candle, pretty much how we just did here. Like I said, retest and then breaking underneath this candle, the breakout candle, then that's what's going to take you to the next structure. And I kind of see that potentially happening if we fall underneath here and we repeat that. Like I said, if we repeat this entire scenario over here, then I see us going down to this, 255 to about 235 level. And I'll just draw that out for you to see that. Hopefully we don't see that, but that's definitely what I'd be looking for. Of course, that would kind of be more so if Bitcoin were to start rolling over further than it did. And we'll talk about Bitcoin in a little bit here. Well, we're just kind of focusing right here on MSTR for now. But yeah, if we were to break, hold, retest, and then once we surpass this wick, I think we can see that level there, and it could happen pretty quickly, just how we had the same move here, where we fell underneath this wick here, this structure, and it happened pretty quick. And even from the this long-term trend line, we fell pretty quick. When you look in a 2-week span, you went from 414 down to 325, a 21% drop in 2 weeks after getting that confirmed rejection off of this long-term trend line. So I kind of would expect that same thing if we were to lose this structure, like I said. And then we're going to be looking at this level over here. On the 3-month, it's still showing that we have some kind of hope, because we still have a month and 2 days to close back inside of this upward sloping trend line and channel. But that's on the 3-month. So we'll see if this can turn into a wick, and then we can get a body of the candle back inside. That would be incredibly bullish because it's a higher time frame. And if we close back inside of this channel on a higher time frame, that's going to be a very, very good sign. Right now on the monthly, there's no chance that we close back inside of this channel because we only have 19 hours left. So for this month, we're back down outside of this long-term channel, which we've been speaking of for a while now. And we haven't seen it close outside of this channel pretty much. I mean, it really, you can probably draw all the way down to this point here. So really January 2023, we haven't fallen out of that trend. When we look at the daily, you can see on a fib perspective, when you pull down, made it to the 0.5 to 618 and continue that move down because it's a bearish pull, and this is a continuation of that downtrend. And the same thing here, pushed up to the 382, which is a more bearish confirmation than the 0.5 to 618. This shows that it's a very strong bearish move at the moment. Hopefully we can get a move all the way up. But right now, if this were to continue down, this is probably a more powerful move than this one over here. And it kind of lines up with a bear flag right here. When you take that move, you have a flag, and that measured move takes you to 320, 331, and we hit that. So now, if we were to take this here and we go based off of this, we're saying this is the theoretical pullback, that we're not going any higher. That's not, I'm not saying that that's the case, but I'm just doing basic TA. So if this is another bear flag, hypothetically, and it were to play out, it would take you down to 282. But of course, we'd have to lose this structure here for that bear flag to play out. So we'd have to get that close that we we're talking about, more than likely on the weekly, a retest downside, which could extend this bear flag even further down. When we look at the monthly SMA on MSTR, you can see the 20-week SMA, or 20-month SMA, I'm sorry, is sitting at 240, 245 or so. So we'll see if we come into contact with that. I would expect that if we get a break and hold on the weekly, the retest, and then we surpass the most recent candle on that breakdown, then I could see us touching the 245 area, which is pretty much where that 20-month SMA would line up at. It might be a little bit higher by the time that happens, so maybe it's at 260, 265. And that should be a strong level for a bounce if we were to fall that far. Hopefully, we don't even have to talk about this. Hopefully, this thing can just turn back around, and this can turn into a nice wick on the weekly or monthly and get this thing moving up. On the weekly, we have surpassed the 20. We were saying after breaking this, more than likely a retest and continue on down to the 50. We did that in confluence with the structure loss as well, which made it more obvious that we were more than likely going to touch the 50 because we lost the structure and the moving average and this downward sloping trend line. We're back inside of it. So we got to bounce off the 50, and then we came back to touch it again, and now we're hugging the 50. So we'll see what happens in the next 19 hours. If we close back underneath the 50-week SMA, then that's going to more than likely indicate some kind of retest of it and potentially lower levels. On the daily, it's not looking the best as we fell underneath the 200-day SMA. We came back for a retest like we always say when we break structure. Now we're potentially going to fall and see lower levels. Now, if Bitcoin were to turn around, this could more than likely turn into a double bottom. And we could see something like this here, and then a nice move to the upside. But with September typically being not the best month for the market and Bitcoin, then it kind of increases the odds of continuation to the downside. Of course, like I said, MSTR, once it gets going, it can really flip around in the snap of a finger. So don't be surprised if this thing rips up to the upside. I'm just showing you what I'm seeing on the basic TA. On Bitcoin, we saw a rejection off of the upward sloping trend line from the 2021 highs and the 24, 25 highs. We found rejection off of that here on the monthly, as you can see. Hopefully we're finding some kind of bottom as we are touching the structure here. It kind of lines up way over here in this area. So that's a pretty strong level right there. We got a strong bounce off of it. We'll see if we can hold it think that's going to be a key level. If we lose that, then I think we can fall to further levels. Right now, it's looking pretty solid though. Maybe just a little pullback before a continuation to the upside. And here on the daily, what we would have liked to see was a close back above the structure at 113,300, which would have coincided with a close like right above this gray box here, and a retest and continuation. But if we were to still close above this wick tomorrow, we can kind of still do the same thing, retest, and then start looking for higher levels and potentially move up to the structure over here, because we have clean candles when you look here to the left hand side, not much traffic. So after breaking this, we could potentially make it to the top of this zone right here, maybe find a little bit of rejection off of here, but in terms of these candles, it should be a potential clean move. And then if we can hold that, that'll indicate higher prices, and maybe we can start playing with the white line, that upward sloping trend line there, and start talking about higher prices on Bitcoin. And of course, that would be increasing MSTR's price as well. On the SMAs for Bitcoin, we're well above it, not even close. It's sitting at 81,000 and we're sitting at 112. And when you take a look here, we actually got a bounce off the 20-week SMA. And that was also confluence with that key structure that I was talking about just a minute ago. And we're seeing some nice rejection to the upside off of that. And on the daily, we are still underneath the 20 and 50, so we got to break above those. And that's going to be confluence with this structure right here. More than likely support price to the white line there. When you overlay Bitcoin MSTR, you can see it's still pretty much doing what we always talk about, where it tends to front run Bitcoin. So you can see MSTR was already dropping prior to this move that Bitcoin was having. So that does happen. It tends to happen pretty often. You can see it peaked before Bitcoin did over here. It did the same over here, and it continues to do the same. So it's nothing that we haven't seen before on MSTR. If Bitcoin has much higher to go, then we could potentially see higher prices for MSTR as well. Make sure you guys drop a like and subscribe. Make sure you guys check out the WAP. The link is in the pinned comment and the bio. Make sure you guys check that out. Join the community. You get a more in-depth look, premium access to videos, and all that kind of stuff. Make sure you check that out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.